In the 18th century, the Mughal Empire was an absolute titan. We're talking a global superpower, overflowing with wealth and might, dominating the entire Indian subcontinent. But then, in just a few decades, it all crumbled. This created a huge power vacuum that would pave the way for a brand new and very different kind of empire. So how on earth did that happen? Let's dig into the spectacular collapse that literally changed the course of history.
And that's really the big question for us today, isn't it? How does an empire that seems completely invincible, the envy of the world for nearly 200 years, just fall apart so completely? Well, it wasn't one single event. It was more like a perfect storm, a combination of deep internal decay and some really brutal external shocks that brought this giant to its knees.
You can almost trace the beginning of the end to one specific moment, the death of Emperor Aurangzeb in 1707. His long and very costly reign had already put a huge strain on the empire's foundation, so when he died, it just unleashed this storm of instability. It led to a decline that was both rapid and catastrophic, leaving India fractured and incredibly vulnerable.
To really get a grip on this collapse, you have to understand the sheer scale of the challenges the later Mughals were facing. They were basically fighting a war on two fronts, and not against some foreign enemy, but against their own internal weaknesses and, well, the tough realities of history.
So, as you can see, the empire was being hit from two sides. Internally, it was just rotting from the core. You had a whole string of weak rulers, bloody wars just to get on the throne, and the entire administration was just breaking down. That was eating away at its strength. And externally, well, all that weakness was like an open invitation. The empire's borders were neglected, which made it a sitting duck for a devastating attack.
Let's start our investigation by looking inside the empire. Because here's the thing, before any foreign power could even dream of taking over India, the Mughals had already started to defeat themselves. The cracks in the foundation were deep, and man, they were spreading fast.
This timeline really shows the chaos at the very top. See, there was no clear rule for who became the next emperor, so every time a ruler died, his sons would start these bloody civil wars to grab the throne. You see an elderly Bahadur Shah I, and then boom, a chaotic 7-year blur with 4 different emperors. Even Muhammad Shah, who ruled for a long time, was pretty useless. Under his watch, powerful provinces like Bengal and Hyderabad just drifted away and basically became independent.
Now, at the heart of this political rot was this crippling economic problem called the jagirdari crisis. The whole empire's administration kind of relied on this system. You give nobles the right to collect taxes from a piece of land, a jagir, but over time there were way more nobles than there was available land. This created this desperate scramble where nobles fought each other for control, squeezed every last coin they could from the peasants, and ultimately it weakened the central government, which just couldn't afford to pay them anymore.
And the problems didn't stop there. The zamindars, these powerful local landowners, started acting like their own little kings, which chipped away even more at the emperor's authority. The nobility, who were supposed to be the steel frame of the empire, were just consumed by selfish rivalries. And because of all that, the army, which was the backbone of the whole thing, became starved of funds and leadership and just fell apart. The empire was simply too huge and complex to be run by the weak, ineffective rulers sitting in Delhi.
All this internal decay, well, it didn't go unnoticed. With the empire basically hollowed out from the inside, it was only a matter of time before someone from the outside decided to take advantage. Those once mighty Mughal borders were now dangerously exposed, and a storm was brewing in the northwest. And that storm broke with terrifying force in 1739. Nadir Shah of Persia swept into India. At the Battle of Karnal, his smaller, more disciplined army completely wiped out the bloated and disorganized Mughal forces. He then just marched unopposed into Delhi, the imperial capital, and let his army loose on the city. It was horrifying.
The amount of loot taken was just astronomical. Nadir Shah's forces walked away with an estimated 70 crore rupees, a mind-boggling fortune. But this wasn't just about cash. He took priceless cultural treasures, like the legendary Peacock Throne and the Kohinoor Diamond. This wasn't just a financial hit, it was a devastating blow to the empire's prestige, one it would never, ever recover from. And this is the crucial link. Those 57 days that Nadir Shah was in Delhi completely shattered the idea of Mughal power. I mean, the emperor couldn't even protect his own capital. It was laid bare for everyone to see. This massive shock to the system exposed just how weak the empire had become and created the perfect power vacuum for the British East India Company to start making its moves.
After Nadir Shah's invasion, the illusion of a unified empire was just
gone forever. What popped up in its place was a politically fragmented India, as ambitious governors, local chiefs, and rebels started carving out their own kingdoms from the corpse of the Mughal state.
This table gives us a quick look at the new political map of India. It was a total patchwork of competing powers. You had successor states, like Bengal, where the Mughal governors just decided to make their jobs hereditary. You had independent kingdoms, like Mysore, that just took advantage of the chaos. And crucially, you had the new states, like the super formidable Marathas and Sikhs, who had been rebels against Mughal rule and now set up their own powerful territories.
But here's the most critical point. While all these new regional powers were strong enough to shatter the Mughal Empire, not a single one of them was strong enough to build a new one to replace it. They were just locked in this state of constant, exhausting war with each other. This endless infighting meant that instead of a new, stable empire, India just had this gaping power vacuum right at its center. So what did this new India actually look like right on the eve of the British conquest? Well, by the mid-18th century, it was a land of really stark contrasts and simmering conflicts. The stage was perfectly set for a new power to show up and impose its will. The social reality was one of shocking extremes. In the new regional capitals, rulers and nobles lived these lives of incredible luxury, funding new styles of art and architecture. But for the average person, life was brutal. The peasantry was trapped under this crushing triple burden of taxes from the state, the local zamindars, and the jagirdars. Agriculture was stagnant, and the immense suffering of the people created the perfect conditions for rebellion and even more political chaos.
So to wrap it all up, the fall of this giant wasn't because of one single thing, but a whole cascade of failures. It all started at the top, with a string of incapable rulers and endless wars for the throne. It then spread to the administration, with a corrupt nobility and a failing economy. This internal rot made the empire an easy target for devastating invasions, which then sped up the rise of powerful regional states that just tore the empire to pieces.
The Mughal Empire was gone in everything but name. India was now a chessboard of competing kingdoms, each one fighting for the top spot, but none able to get it. This left one final burning question. With the old giant dead and all the new powers locked in a stalemate, who was going to step into that vacuum and claim the ultimate prize?